Wherefore, Series 2, Episode 14. It is 9 on a Tuesday evening, and the centre of Stroud is so dead that even the usual ghosts haven't bothered to come out. There are no cars. You can hear the tinny sound of music from one of the flats above the shops. Even the urban foxes are quiet, as though they too are caught in some kind of fairy tale enchantment. The man in the moon is sat on a bench outside the subscription rooms. He has a hoodie pulled right down over his face, and a face mask, and he emits no light at all. From his stillness you might mistake him for a statue. The local police do not, however, mistake him in this way and pull up near the bench. One of the officers leaves the car to check him out. "Good evening," says the moon, in a calm, sober sort of voice. "All right," the police person asks. "Fine, thank you," says the moon. "Really speaking, you shouldn't be sitting here," the police person continues. On the whole, Gloucestershire police have been handling things well, but there are always exceptions. This is someone who has had a really tedious night in stressful circumstances. You can exercise outside for 1 hour. You are not supposed to be sitting around. The moon has not been paying much attention to the shifting nonsense of local human rules and the reasons for them. He sighs, pulls back his hood and shines forth. There are reasons the man in the moon does not usually share his light in this way. It is a bit much for most human minds, and it is a kindness to spare them from such hurts. However, at the moment, he is both melancholy and short of patience. Still unbearably brilliant, he turns away from the stunned police person and settles back onto the bench. He returns to contemplating the flagstones of the subscription room's forecourt. He is waiting for something. Inspiration, maybe, or a sign, or for some kind of magic to happen. Having spent a lot of time being a person recently, he is finding it rather hard to think about being magical or about what he might effectively do. He's feeling rather stuck. Behind him, the police person starts sobbing uncontrollably. Too much moonlight does this to some people. "I hate it all. I feel like I'm supposed to be officious, but it doesn't come naturally. I feel so fraudulent most of the time." The man in the moon is not feeling very sympathetic. "Go home," he says. He hears the car door close, the engine start. The whole world is mad, and he should, he supposes, feel more at home in it for that. He doesn't, though. 4 people turn up on the forecourt together. They seem untroubled by the extra moonlight and acknowledge him with small bows and salutes. They may be more his kind of madness. He watches them because it is something to do and easier than not watching them. They set about making chalk designs on the flagstones. From this angle, the man in the moon cannot make out what they are drawing. Still, it cheers him to see them in action. All artists belong to his domain. Crazy artists chalking a public space during a lockdown are most assuredly his. He wonders idly whether they need any help and decides to at least have a closer look at the work in progress. As the man in the moon gets closer to the art making, a number of things become obvious to him. Firstly, the images are of massive creatures in a cave painting style, the more elegant end of cave art at that. There's a fine mix of abstraction and liveliness going on here. The second thing he notices is that the artists are moving oddly, without elegance or liveliness in themselves. They are all cumbersome in their movements. His third and most surprising discovery is that they all have their eyes shut. They appear to be asleep. One of them is wearing pyjamas and a dressing gown. 2 are barefoot, 2 have socks on. One looks like they probably got dressed while asleep, and another was likely sleeping in their clothes from how rumpled they look. Whatever is directing the art, it is not the people whose hands hold the chalk. The man in the moon wishes the weaver were here. She would be able to see the threads of intention and thus would understand what is happening. He can make no sense of this strange gathering. Who would want to make people do art in their sleep? In the middle of the night? In their socks? In a pandemic? And why this sort of art, and why here? The weaver pays attention to all the details. She tends to know what's going on. The man in the moon is often either preoccupied with the bigger picture or captivated by specific details, so that the rest passes him by entirely. Normally, this is not a problem for him. He misses the weaver's insights and how she fills in the gaps for him. He misses the sound of her voice. It has brought him to the point of not wanting to be a distant shining moon creature anymore. He now spends most of his time being human-ish and wishing she was there and human-ish too. Where his personal moonlight touches the image of creatures, they seem to flicker and dance. The drawings themselves have a lithe, mobile quality, and when he moves, and his light moves, he has the sense that the pictures were really meant to be seen this way. They should be in flickering firelight, perhaps, rather than wandering moonlight, but it still works. The creatures come to life. Not just in the way you might expect a cave painting to come to life by candlelight. They emerge from the flagstones, expanding into the third dimension as they arise. They are not quite real creatures, and are far more lively than art forms. He thinks they are the essence of creatures, a distillation of red deer, a simmering down of wild hoarseness, a sense of what saber-toothed tiger means, and not any specific living beings at all. They caper off under the streetlights, and he wonders how long they will remain substantial, how long anything will remain real, come to that. The sleepwalking artists pay no heed to the life informing their work. They just keep on creating. The man in the moon picks up a lump of charcoal no one is using, and with it he draws the likeness of the weaver onto one of the subscription room's pillars. He misses her face. He half wishes his moonlight would bring her figure to life too, and is half relieved that it does not. After a while, he pulls the hood back over his head, dims his light, and walks away, heading nowhere in particular.